3 this year. So some things about me is I'm currently attending the UCI as a political science and music major. I started getting into politics because I interned at State Senator Patricia Bates' office for 2 years in high school. During my time there, I focused a lot on education-based issues, especially with sex education.
Political science.
I also graduated from 3 Irvine schools. I graduated from Cannon View Elementary, Sierra Vista Middle School, and Northwood High School very recently. So I do know how Irvine curriculum directly impacts Irvine students and families as well. And I volunteer a lot in the community. I volunteer with an organization called 赞美之权, and I also volunteer at my local church as well as the Opus Music Foundation, and where I'm a senior advisor as well.
Thanks, Bethany. And we're very excited that you can run for the school board, and but we also want to know, why you are interested in running the school board, and can you tell us a little bit about the reason?
Yeah, so at Northwood High School, some people may be familiar with the integrated science curriculum. And so they were having issues with that because many parents and students did not like the Irvine integrated science curriculum. And so they wanted to change that. And so they would go to board meetings and try and talk to the board members to initiate a compromise. But the communication there was very, very poor. And so the problem really never got solved. And a lot of the parents really spent and poured a lot of time into this issue to really see no result. And so I wanted to really facilitate better communication and better communication and honest and transparency between the parents as well as the board. And so that is why I decided to run, and I prayed about it, and I decided that this was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to make change in Irvine. I also have a younger sister who is at Northwood High School right now, and I also want to make sure she receives the optimal education in Irvine.
Thank you. And you mentioned earlier that you have gone through your school life in Irvine. So how do you evaluate the quality of IUSD?
Yeah, Irvine is definitely one of the top ranked school districts in our state, which is really awesome. I think there are so many different educational opportunities that Irvine does make available. And one of those is the visual arts and performing arts programs, which are very, very prevalent. There are also many great staff in IUSD. However, I do think that the board does need to be more receptive about parent concerns, and that would improve education quality. There are certain programs that I believe really hurt students in the long run. And so I really want to be able to change that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I know many parents come to Irvine due to the quality of Irvine education. And so there's a lot of things we really like Irvine about. And but I also want to ask you, what do you see the top 3 challenges that facing IUSD?
Yeah, so the first one is very obvious with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's really difficult. It's very difficult for many students to go through the distance learning with their teachers. I know that is a huge issue. And so I also want to make sure that students are stay safe and really listen to what are the issues that we run into with distance learning. And so one of my proposals is, if elected, I would definitely talk to Irvine teachers as well as students and figure out what is something that they need that can help improve distance learning. Are there different materials that they need, or is there more time that they need? And I really would want to be able to facilitate that communication. One of the second challenges that I think Irvine is facing is the sex education curriculum. I really want it to be more.
Bethany, there's echo.
Can you please, yeah, thank you. one of the second challenges that I was saying that Irvine is facing is the sex education curriculum. I feel like parents should be able to be involved when developing this curriculum. That is very important to me. And I also want more honest and transparent communication between the board and parents about sex ed. Third, I would say is definitely, I think one of the things is that parents are not really that involved in terms of board decision making. Yes, they're allowed to speak at board meetings. Yes, they're allowed to give their input, but I feel like the board is not super receptive of that. And so I'm here to change it. And so I would change it by making sure that there is a lot of time for most parents and students to be able to speak their concerns. I know board meetings really don't give enough time for that. And so I want to be able to open a separate time so that parents are able to talk to board members about different issues that are happening within the district. You're muted.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And since you mentioned about one of the challenges is the COVID, and I know USD have so many students, it's a huge challenge for them to manage it, the situation. And so what do you think IUSD is doing during the pandemic? Do you think they're doing a good job, a bad job? And I know there's a lot of discussion among the parents about how IUSD handled the pandemic.
Yeah, I think they're definitely trying their best. It's a very difficult solution because there's no perfect solution. It's really hard a lot of parents want to send kids back to school. Some of them are not comfortable. And so I'm glad that there's these options that parents can have to choose whether they want to send their kids back to school or not. As of right now, I know there have been cases at school, but it seems to have been taken care of, which is really good. But I also know that there are some teacher concerns about distance learning. And so I think maybe just making sure that we're still communicating with the teachers as much as possible, as well as the parents to see, okay, what are different issues that we're facing with distance learning and what are ways that we can tackle that together.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I asked you about top challenge you already mentioned about, and also you talk about what you want to do. Beside what you just said, is any other things you want to add if you get elected, you want to work on?
Yeah, I also want to focus a lot more on the visual and performing arts programs. I do feel like some schools have a lot more funding than others in that sense, and I want to make sure that each student does have enough opportunity to pursue the visual and performing arts. So that's definitely another thing.
So from your experience, I guess you think the visual arts, the art is really important for the education. Yeah,
Oh,
Irvine. Yeah, Irvine is doing a great job in terms of the art program. Okay, thanks. And we talked about early on, because of the quality of IUSD, a lot of Chinese parents come here for the school. And do you see, like, in terms of the priority, the Chinese parents are different compared to other population?
I do think that Asian parents in general, I think there is a culture that does emphasize academics a lot more. And so I think that does influence what their priorities are. I can really see that when the parents were fighting against the integrated science curriculum, that was something that was really important to them. And so I want to make sure that I can be a voice for the Chinese community, especially because it's really difficult to make sure that the board is receptive of all the concerns. And so even though our priorities may be different, I do think that it is important that the Chinese community is represented.
Yeah, I know IUSD has made a lot of changes in the last few years in terms of integrated math, integrated science. Do you see these are like going the opposite direction compared to what Asian parents want, or you think like it's really the direction we should head into?
No, I don't approve of the integrated math and science curriculums. I feel like it hurts students more than it helps. I don't really like the ideas of Common Core in general, but because we do have to follow that framework, I think that having these separated math and science classes is much more beneficial to students because they're able to have a stronger STEM foundation. And right now with the integrated programs, that is really non-existent. And so I do feel like that is a lot of Chinese parents' concerns because they do want their kids to have this strong foundation in science, technology, and math. And so I do think that the integrated programs actually hurt that.
So do you think that is that possible that IUS could reverse the course and go back, or is that really the direction in California or in the nation?
Definitely just California is starting to go more towards integrated science and integrated math. And I'm really hoping that we don't, because it really just hurts students.
Okay, thank you. And so how do you think the Chinese parents should get more involved in the school? And what's your advice for them?
Volunteer in your child's classroom, volunteer in your child's PTA. I think really being there and really seeing how everything works firsthand is going to be really helpful. And later on, you are also able to really give your input to a lot of teachers and staff. My mom was really, really involved when I was younger, when I was at school, and she was always volunteering at PTA and all of that. And so it actually really helped me because she was able to find out about different programs or different organizations before I did. So I think that is definitely something that is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I do see that a lot of more parents start getting involved in the school. And yeah, I moved to Irvine almost more than 20 years ago. And I really see a big change in terms of the involvement of parents. And she's really good, very encouraging. And another question I want to ask you Irvine has a really good education. People are really surprised to learn that the budget in Irvine is pretty low compared to other part of California. And do you have any thought about, in terms of budget, how do we keep the good quality in the meantime to navigate at such low budget? And
I believe that we should never throw money at our problems. I think that's one thing that I very strongly believe in terms of fiscal policies. And so I think it's great that IUSD is able to really minimize their funding. I do feel like they do spend too much money on like contracting firms and instead should be spending that money more towards teachers and students specifically. So I think one thing is something that really helps is that families donate and contribute to the classroom, whether that be money or time. That really, really helps with improving our education quality. And so I think definitely continuing that will help as well.
So you mentioned early on, like you like IUSD to probably do more in the visual art. So other than visual art, do you see like any other area school should do, IUS should do more, or you think they have very good program already?
I do think they have really good programs already. Maybe putting more funding away from contracting firms, away from outside organizations, and more towards teachers and student organizations would definitely be helpful as well.
Okay, thanks. And also in the last few years, and there's many immigrants from China, and I know some of the parents, kids are really facing a lot of issues due to the language, a lot of other things. Do you think IUSD has done enough for these immigrant students? And if not, what else can they do to help these students?
I think teachers being very flexible and very receptive to these immigrant students in their classrooms. I saw that firsthand. There's also different mentoring programs that my high school personally did that I think is really helpful, and I want to be able to extend to other schools as well. So I think IUSD has done a lot. Obviously, making sure that these students have the English language classes that they need to be able to succeed in the classroom would definitely be very, very helpful as well.
So you say like IUSD has done a lot to help these students already?
Yes, I've seen it a lot in the classroom firsthand.
So what do you think is the main challenge other than language?
I think it's culture. Definitely Chinese and American school culture is very, very different. So that's why my high school did the mentoring program where they would pair these immigrant students with someone who has been in the high school for a couple years. And I think that definitely really helps because having another student help you is actually a lot more helpful than having an adult. So
do you have any advice for these students? What can they do to really help them to integrate into the school environment?
Get involved. 100% is like, if you're able to get involved with different school organizations or talking to teachers, and I think that really facilitates a relationship with other students and teachers as well as really amending that culture shock that does come with immigrating to a different country.
Okay. And I know, the school has started, and so how do you really balance your time between the school and your campaign?
So throughout high school, I was very involved in a lot of extracurriculars. So I interned in the state senate, I did taekwondo, I did softball, I did speech and debate. I also joined a ecclesia, which is a Christian club at my high school. On top of that, I had school and piano to balance as well. And I also made it a nonprofit organization. And so during high school, I was really able to learn how to prioritize and time manage. And I think that really carries over until right now, because I am in college. But I'm able to really balance my school life as well as the campaign and learning how to time manage best. And because I only have 24 hours in a day, and I think that's a skill that I learned that really helps me balance it.
Yeah, it's amazing you are able to handle both. I know the students, especially when they start a freshman, just handle the schoolwork is already pretty difficult.
Yeah.
So what do you see the biggest challenge for you during the campaign? And what do you do for your campaign?
So I think for my campaign, one of the biggest challenges is getting my name out there. Obviously, this is my first time ever running for public office. This is the first year I can vote. And so definitely getting my name out there is really important. So I've been putting up yard signs, passing out flyers, sending out social media posts and emails. And so I think that's definitely what I've been trying to do.
So how can we help? If people want to help, but
yeah, if you live in District 3, I do have yard signs. And if you do want one, just feel free to contact me. I also have flyers that you can pass out, and everything's on my website, and really just forwarding my information to people who live in that area, it would be really helpful.
Okay. So yeah, maybe later you can type in your website into the chat box, people can see. And so if they are interested, they can help you. Okay. And there's a couple of other questions not related to the school board. I want to ask you, because that like a Proposition 6, they feel like very hot topic facing the society. The first one is Proposition 16. I'd like to hear your view on this.
I do not support Proposition 16 because I believe that it discriminates against Asian American students. I don't think that trying to solve this inequity between students is going to be helpful in terms of during the college admissions process. I don't support it at all. I feel like it discriminates and forces Asian American students to have to work harder in the long run, and that is really just not okay. So I don't support Proposition 16.
Thanks. So I know this is probably really heated topic among the parents and their kids. There's a lot of disagreement between the parents and their kids. And do you have any advice or suggestion for how do parents really discuss and communicate with their kids on these issues?
I think it's really difficult when you aren't Asian American to really empathize with this movement that's happening with No on Proposition 16, but really just emphasizing that if you are promoting equality, it should be equality for everyone, right? It shouldn't be equality for certain groups. Certain groups should not have a higher advantage than other students. And so also communicating that in our society, I think that merit is most important, not our race, not our gender, not something that we can't control, right? It should be something that we can control, which is how hard we work as students, and that is our merit. And so definitely communicating that should be one of the most fair requirements for college admissions rather than some element that we really can't control.
Yeah, I find it's really difficult because they have a lot of different opinion, and so I know there's a lot of families. This become really a debate, among the parents and the kids. Yeah, and another question I have is I know, you're just going to the college, and for this district, there's like several candidates are running for the position. And so why do you think we should vote for you? So what's your qualification?
So the biggest thing is that I have firsthand experience. I just recently graduated from in Irvine High School. And so I've seen firsthand how board policy affects Irvine students and parents. I think that's something that the other candidates don't have because I was able to attend IUSD schools. And so definitely having that will really help when facing different issues because I know how it will directly impact Irvine families. Another thing is that during my time as a state senate intern, I focused a lot on education-based issues, and I did a lot of research into California education. And so that really helps me as well. I'm running because I care. A lot of people are telling me, why are you running for public office? You should just enjoy your college years, right? And I'm really running because I want to make a change in Irvine. And I really care about all the Irvine students and families. And so I really want to make change and be a representative for them.
Thank you. 等一下，我跟 parents 说，感谢大家上线啊。如果你们，因为我这边的问题差不多要完了，所以你们如果有什么问题想问 Bethany 的，你们可以把它放到 chat box 里头，然后等我们这边完了以后，我们可以回答听众的问题。Bethany, I know IUSD is kind of independent compared to the city council. And how do you have any suggestion or how do you IUSD should work with a city?
So definitely, I think in terms of funding, I know this is a private company, but it does have to deal with the city as well. But the Irvine company does donate a lot of money to our school district, which really helps with a lot of funding because we don't receive that much government funding. And so making sure that we're facilitating that interaction as well is really important. In terms of the city, is just maybe opening up different opportunities. I do know that IUSD does offer some programs that allow students to really work firsthand in different internships or different jobs and really see it. And so I think those opportunities would be really, really cool, and making sure that we have it available at all schools as well. So that is definitely something that I think IUSD could do.
So have you been to any board meetings and they say how they, I know they have regular board meetings, and but I think most of parents probably don't even know what they do. So is their communication, in my opinion, is pretty poor in terms of how do they communicate the rest of the parents and what's their policy. Do you have any comments on that? And how is any?
Yeah, definitely with the board, I would say I watched a couple of the board meetings, and I feel like there's a lot of miscommunication happening between the board and the parents. I definitely think that could be greatly improved. And I think that there's not enough optimal time reserved for parents to really be able to give their input to the board. And so that's an issue as well, because I do think that parents should be involved in district decision making. And so that's definitely something that I think could be improved.
Yeah. Do you know what kind of decisions that the board are involved? Because I know they have a superintendent and what kind of a policy or decision they are involved, they have the power with.
Yeah, so they do all the budgeting, which means that they have to set apart, they have to break down all of the funding that they have and set it apart to figure out which schools receive what funding, what teachers receive what funding, what organizations and contracting firms receive this funding. So that's really, really important, and making sure that the programs that are important to Irvine families to have the adequate funding that they need. Another thing that they do that's very, very important is that they approve of curriculum. So what happens is the California State Board of Education will send curriculum to districts to let them pick of what fits their framework. And so the Irvine board does choose that. And one of the very, very important ones is sex education, right? So we have to comply to the CHIA framework, unfortunately. But if IUSD is able to pick framework and pick curriculum that parents also approve of, that would be very, very helpful. So that's kind of a short spiel about what the Board of Education does do.
Okay, since you mentioned about sex education, I'd like to hear more about your opinion on this. I know there's a lot of debate and concerns from parents about the current sex education curriculum. And I know you mentioned early on, but I'd like to see if you can elaborate a little bit more on this topic. And what do you think about the current curriculum?
Yeah, so unfortunately, our curriculum has to abide by the California Health Youth Act, which is passed by the state. So that is something that the board cannot control. However, what the board can control is the curriculum and the speakers that they invite to the health classes. And I think that's where we run into an issue. I don't think that the board really involved parents in this decision-making, because I do think that there is certain curriculum that I feel like just happen to sexualize our children or is too mature for younger children. Another thing is that they're not super communicative to parents about what's happening in the classroom, which I think is a very big issue. I went through the sex ed curriculum with in Irvine, and they pretty much did not tell my parents what was going on. And so I think that is a really, really huge issue. And so if IUSD was able to publish their curriculum online for parents to evaluate and discuss with parents in this decision-making process, that would be really, really helpful.
Thank you. And I think these are all the questions from my side. I saw there are several questions from the audience, so I'm going to read these questions. And first one, any comments on how IUSD will help to prepare students for their future college application, career development in current situation, as SAT, ACT being canceled?
So right now, because of the COVID-19, I do know a lot of the testing centers are being canceled, which is a issue. But I think maybe offering our own district or teachers help with students who are taking the test would be really, really helpful. Because I know personally, I did not receive a lot of assistance from my counselors in that area. And so maybe training our counselors to be able to answer questions about the tests and really assist students would be really helpful. I am an SAT prep tutor, actually. I've been doing it for a year now. And so I am very knowledgeable about the whole system and how it works. So I would definitely be able to answer a lot of questions about it as well.
Thank you. There's another question from parent, and I think we touched base a little bit and about that since the school started. So if you are on the board, how do you plan to allocate the priorities between attending the college and serve IUSD?
Yeah, so like I said before, in high school, I really learned, because I was so involved in many, many different extracurriculars, I was really able to learn how to balance a lot of things, because I was pretty much working 2 jobs at the time. I was also doing college apps. I had to play piano and practice piano because I did have competitions and recordings. I volunteered in my community in multiple places, at church, at Stream of Praise, at school. And so I really have learned really the importance of time management during high school. And so that really carries over as a skill right now, and if I was elected as a board member.
Thank you. Another question, and you also mentioned early on, you find that the communication with IUSD has been so difficult, and because they tend to, pad on their own, and they ignore the opinion from the parents. And so how do you plan to work with such a team and convince them, if you have a different approach as what they do?
So I would say that I really hope that if elected, the board would be willing to work with me. I feel like our Irvine really needs a new, fresh coat of paint, you could say, because I would bring a fresh perspective and fresh ideas to the board. And so I really hope that they would be able to work with me. I haven't actually met most of these people yet, so I'm not sure how I would be able to work with them. But I know that in any new situation, or putting in any when I'm put in any new situation, I'm pretty good at meeting new people and being able to work with them on different projects. So.
Yeah, thank you. I know it could be really, really challenging. I have met some of these. Actually, I met most of the board members, and most of them have been on board for many, many years. And a lot of them don't even have kids anymore. Their kids already graduate. So I think some of their view are not really in line with a lot of parents. And I can see this is really challenging to work with them. We really, you know, and I admire your courage, you know, to take such a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another question from the parent. Many parents, I didn't even know this. Many parents in Irvine are driving students out of the state for SAT and ACT test. So I guess California cancel all SAT, ACT test. Do you think it's possible to bring the test site back to Irvine or to Orange County?
So the issue with this is that Irvine has never hosted a testing site for the SAT and ACT test. I am not sure why. I've never really been able to get an answer as to why Irvine has never done it. I do know kind of the closest ones nearest to us are Foothill and like Corona Del Mar. But I think COVID does definitely make that a really, really huge issue. So maybe even if just during this time, Irvine was able to open 1 or 2 testing sites just for their students, that would definitely be very, very helpful, because I do feel so bad. Some of the students that I tutor have had to drive to Utah or Arizona to take tests. And so that's definitely not fair in terms of the college admission process. So maybe if just during this time, Irvine was able to open a separate testing site, that would be great.
Is that decision will be made by the school board, IUSD, or who can make that decision to say, okay, if they can open a SAT or ACT test site?
It's definitely the school board as well as the superintendent and everyone on the executive board.
I see. Okay. Another question from the parent, from the audience. So IUS didn't give official response to a petition. And the petition statement reopened the school September 16. That was signed by more than 2,000 teachers, students, and parents. Is the board pretending that nothing happens when the communities reach out and have idea and concerns? What is your comment? What would you do better than the current board if elected? So I think that this is another question we'll touch base a little bit early on about how IUSD handled the COVID.
Yeah, so to my knowledge, the reason why the board still reopened schools in September was because of the teachers union. And that's something that I don't like, is that how huge of a control that the teachers association and teachers unions do have over the board, which is why a lot of parents believe that they feel like the board is ignoring their opinion, and that's definitely not okay. I'm not sure what else was the reason why that they chose not to do this, because this is the current board that has made this decision. I do think that it was slightly of a concern that so many teachers and parents and students were signed this. And so I think if I was on the board, I would definitely be more communicative and trying to work with teachers to figure out, okay, what are the issues here? And I remember reading through the petition, and a lot of it had to do with that they didn't have enough health precautions put in place to protect teachers who are high risk or have high risk families. And so that's definitely an issue that I would definitely tackle if I was elected.
Thank you. And I think these are all the questions from the audience. And is there any more? I think there's one more coming. In your opinion, what are the biggest challenges facing IUSD, and what do you think to be a solution for these issues? What changes do you see for IUSD if you elect on board? I think we talked about this already early on. And so is there any additional you want to add to those?
No, definitely just the same thing of being more honest and communicative with parents, making sure they're working with parents. The COVID-19 pandemic, making sure we have enough health precautions, and also working with teachers to figure out what are their needs during this difficult time, as well as the focus on the visual arts and performing arts programs.
Thank you. Any other questions from our audience? Okay, if not, I think we're going to wrap up this conversation. And so is any last word you want to talk to the parent, you want to tell the audience?
Yeah, thank you so much for being here and listening to this interview. And I also just wanted to say that as an Asian American student with immigrant parents, I know what you guys are going through. I've really seen how much you care about your kids' education, and I want to be the representative for that. I'm running because I care about you and your kids, and I want to make sure that you have a voice on the board. I have my firsthand experience is extremely valuable because I've seen how different board decisions and policies have impacted Irvine families. And so I want to be able to make change in Irvine. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Bethany. And I want to say thank you again to spend the time with us this evening. I know you are extremely busy, and I want to say that we're so proud of you. And so if there's anything we can help, let us know. And also best luck for your campaign.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good night. And good night, everyone. Thanks for everyone to join the meeting. Thanks and good night.
Thank you.